Hi, I'm Sara Laupp, and I wanted to talk a little bit about how developers are users too. So, a quick intro. I'm a senior software engineer. I work for Zola Electric, and right now I build APIs using Ruby that help distribute solar energy to homes in Africa. And you can find me on Twitter at Sloupy. Not to be confused with Sloppy. Very different. User experience design has become a pretty standard part of how we build software today. And it makes sense. It's really important. If users are frustrated when they try to use your app, they'll probably switch to a different one. And why did you build that app in the first place? It's also a little bit concentrated around graphical user interfaces. Most of the users that we cater to are interacting with a screen when they're working with your software. But what about that text interface? Microservices have become very popular recently, and there are a lot more APIs out there. But those users are often forgotten. After all, developers are users too. How many of you have made this face when trying to integrate with a third party? Yes. This is the problem I'm here to solve today. So I wanted to share a few tips about how you can improve the usability of your APIs. First, be consistent. I don't care what API spec you're using, whether it's REST or GraphQL or even SOAP. Yes, there are some people who still use SOAP. I know, that face. Be consistent in how you name fields across the various endpoints of your API. And make sure that you have your errors in the same portion of the response. It'll make it a lot easier for developers to integrate. After all, any inconsistency adds to the complexity of the code developers have to write in order to integrate with your API. So, be consistent. Write documentation. I know, everybody loves this, right? Cue all the groans. I can't count how many times I've had to integrate with an internal service and all the other developer does is give me a link to a GitHub repo. I don't want to dive through your source code to figure out what's going on. Write some documentation. Common courtesy, the least you can do is write a README that contains instructions on how to generate an authentication token, how to format requests to your API, and then also gives examples of happy and sad path responses. That way they can actually handle the errors that you return. Thirdly, and finally, give your users a head start. The best APIs that I've worked with let me send a test request to their sandbox within 5 minutes of signing up for their service. I didn't have to write a single line of code. There was a magical button on their webpage that generated the token I needed to authenticate. Make it easy for them. Create some sort of sample script for sending the API request. Give them a sample curl command, whatever. Just make it easy. So those are my 3 tips. Be consistent, write documentation, and give your users a head start. These are pretty much forgotten when it comes to building internal services. But don't forget that. After all, developers are users too. Thank you.